morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, to our second webinar hosted by Project 6 and Project 1. We're so pleased today to be able to present one of our best practices in ActionAid, which is the village book from Myanmar. And we have commenters from Brazil and Kenya afterwards that will comment and ask questions based on their context experiences. The village book in Myanmar is an advocacy tool that is used by communities when collecting data to analyze their situation, which they can use to promote change in their community. With me today, I have the key presenters from Myanmar. That's Orlen, it's Clara, and it's Peter. I have with me from Kenya, Francis, and I have Pascaline and Kenyatta. And from Brazil, we have Sergio. But let me just give you a brief chance to introduce yourself. Let us start with Myanmar. Who do we have with us today from Myanmar?
Okay, hi, I'm Clara Fung. I'm the HRBA advisor for Myanmar.
Hi, I'm Orlin of Kliasa. I'm the Program Quality and Impact and Learning Advisor from Myanmar.
Hi, I'm Peter from Zera. I'm working as a M&E coordinator from ActionAid Myanmar.
So that's our team.
Thank you so much. And let us hear who we have from Kenya today.
I am Francis Gakko Francis, Grant Coordinator, ActionAid Kenya.
Hi everyone, my name is Kenyatta Maita. I am the Head of Policy and Campaigns in Kenya.
Hi everyone, my name is Pascaline Kangede. I work for ActionAid in the Policy and Campaigns Unit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Then we have our last guest today, which is Sergio from Brazil. Sergio, can you please introduce yourself?
So hello everyone, I'm Sergio Costa. I'm a Program Officer in ActionAid Brazil. I work with education, but I'm filling in for my colleagues in Rio, which are working on education, on right to the city, and with the specific thematics of SO2.
Thank you so much. And let us give the floor to you from Myanmar. Here you are, 25 minutes.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share with you our flagship approach, the Village Book, which we have been promoting here in Myanmar, and some countries are already imitating our approach. To this presentation, we will be, the three of us, we will be presenting the different aspect of the Village Book. So to start with, I would like to give the floor to Clara, give you a little background of the Village Book and what the Village Book is all about. So Clara.
All right. Okay, Casper, if you could kindly turn to the next slide. Okay, so just before we begin, the idea is to give you an overview of the Village Book and how it came about. So the Village Book, or rather let me just start a bit of how ActionAid Myanmar started. ActionAid Myanmar started in 2006 as a Reflect program. So in 2006, we started training young people to be community mobilizers and organizers, and we call them fellows. And these fellows, we trained them in Reflect methodology, and they became the facilitators to initiate discussions with communities. And through using these Reflect tools, the idea was to support the community to analyze the causes of their poverty, and also to identify their strategies to overcome these issues. So from these discussions, we systematically started to collect the recorded discussions, as well as what are the outcomes they hope to achieve. And from these set of tools, we started to compile them into a more systematic way. And then it became this thing called the Village Book, which actually is basically what we would consider a rights register So the idea is really to get community participating, targeting the most vulnerable and the most marginalized groups, and through this process to promote community and power, and also getting them involved in decision making. So, Casper, next slide, please. So from this, we could see that the village book itself also became a tool where we started to work on more advocacy with both state and non-state actors. So this will be discussed a bit more by my colleagues, Peter and Olu. So this is basically just to give you a quick overview of how we use the village book in terms of the rights register, a participatory tool, an empowerment tool, an engagement advocacy tool, how we use it for M&E, and also just in terms of general baseline. Okay, so let me pass the floor over to Peter.
Yeah. So, hi, Caspar, please next slide. Yeah, this village book process is we develop like a six-step. The first one step is like a comprehensive analysis of the village situations. In this step we analyze the village situations aspects from the social aspect, economic aspects, and then vulnerable also and woman situation. Then the power and relationships within the community. So this step one is the big one of this village book process, because we analyze the situation of the village through the fellowship approach, so that we train the fellow with these all PRA tools we already trained. Then after the step one, we identify the problem. Then after that we prioritize the problem, and then we link this problem to the right to the like a human right. What are the causes of lack of our rights? What are the problems that happen in our community? And then the next step is the analyzing the current situations. And then another one is that making the change, like it is like a dream mapping, dream map of the community, so that the community can dream their future. So how they can develop their situations better than better. After that, we train the community to develop their own village plan, and then in this village development plan, the next step is like a detailed implementation plan. In this plan, we already identified who will who will be responsible for this particular task, and in which particular plan, how we budget, how we use the budget. So how we looking for the budget from the different kinds of the sources, like government, from the government or from NGO or from within their community, so that we can develop the DA implementation plan also. Next slide. Yeah, this is the step one of our our comprehensive analysis. The first one is the social analysis. So in this social analysis, we already draw the village situation, and in this map, we consider the situation of this uh, the situation of the people in this village, and their property of their property we already include in this map. And another one is the economic analysis. In this analysis, we identify the problem, making two sorry economic analysis. Yeah. Yes. So in this economic analysis, we uh, we identify their problem from the villages using the seasonal calendar and the resource map, and then we this is all of this the PRA2 we already know, and most of the country are using this PRA2 mixed up. Yeah. Step two is the problem prioritization. So that we after the analyzing the village situation, we can identify their main problem, so that we prioritize the problem also. So this in this step two we draw the problem tree, because this problem tree is we can see the problem is like we can see what are the problem is come from. It's like a cause and effect. So the villagers, the community also can understand their causes of the problem, and then how this problem can affect their livelihood situation, and also their living standard. So that this problem prioritization is the another main step of our village process. Next slide. Yeah. Step three. Step three is the we step three is the linkage between the current situation and then problem, so that we can identify the changes, what we can hope for the future, what we can change for the future. So that this is the step three. The next step. Yeah, this is the dream map. Dream map. After the identifying their after the community identifying mm, their changes. So we whatever they want to change in the future, we draw the map in the dream map. It is like a dream map. Uh, this is the changes from the community, what they want to change for the coming like 5 or 10 years. Another slide. This one is the village development plan. In this plan, we prioritize the problem, and then we in each problem how we can do for the how we can solve this problem by doing the action point, and then when we will do this action point, and then who will be participate in this particular action point. So that this is the village development plan. This is also the draft of the village development plan, but it is not detailed. So the next step is step 6 is like a detailed implementation plan. In this plan, the whole plan is like developed by the community. So how they can implement this their action point, so that how they can contribute as part of the like a budget, and as part of the labor forces. So how they can contribute in this particular action point. Yeah, next step. This is the village board mainstreaming. So that we already developed the village board is like a PRA tools. So that firstly, at first we already implement in the within the village. After that, we understand this village board is like a advocacy tool. So that this can be like negotiate within between the government and the community, so that this village book is become like a advocacy too. So this is the step of the mainstreaming, so that we already developed developed the village book at the community level, and then we develop the village book. In this village book, we can get the baseline indication of this the whole community, and then we have the village development action plan, and then we advocate the government, relevant government, to implement the community right. So because of the government is like we understand the government is like a duty bearer, community is the right holder, so that the the person who has to implement their community right is like a government, so that we advocate this village book to the government. Next slide. This is the fellow training. This is recently finished in Chin State. Next slide. This is the also village book social map process. So this is happening in the community. So in this slide, you can see how the community is participating in this particular process. Yeah, another slide. This is also the government involvement in the village book process, so that we already train the village leader and then village authority to implement the village book at the township and regional level. Next slide. Now we also develop the baseline data from the village book. This is the ongoing process, because there is so many data from the villages, so that now we are currently developing the baseline data from the village book. Next slide. Yeah, this is the village action point. The first one is the English. That is also you already can see what are the ingredients in this action point. So that another one is the our language in Myanmar. So yeah, next slide. So this is the our regional manager engaged the village book to government staff and the community level. Yeah.
Okay. Next. So beyond the village book process, our primary aim is to bring all these problems and action plans of the villages to the government. So we presented the village book to the government officials to mainstream in the township level development plan and possibly into the regional development plan. And however, we also promoted some action points to some donors who are interested. That's why we have some projects also identified from the village book, which are funded now by some donors and some other development organizations. And we are now influencing the national government, particularly the Department of Rural Development, a new agency of the government which will spearhead the village development planning process of all the villages. So we are now influencing them to adopt the village book process and approach. And so one of our staff will be sitting in one of the think tank or the planner of this nationwide village planning process. So we have upscaled from the township, and now we're trying to influence the national government to adopt the village book process. And of course, this is of course a prelude to bottom-up participatory planning process in different levels of the local government unit. And because of our work, we have been invited also in several international, regional, and national consultations on the village book. No? Next slide, please. Okay, we discussed that some of the action points or the action plan made by the villages are implemented. We conducted a study on how many percent of these are now being implemented and not yet implemented, which may need other donors also, and how many percent are still ongoing projects. So you can see in the graph, the blue one is still the finished project, meaning these projects identified in the village book are acted upon by the government. They implemented some of the action points. Some are, of course, by action aid, others by other donors, and others are the people themselves. The people themselves implemented some of the action points that they have identified. No? And then the red one is not yet implemented, and then you have the green. So there are different classification of, we classify the different action points. No, we classify them according to capacity building, like trainings, community building construction, DRR concern, education, food security. So mostly the one implemented are in education. No? So these are school buildings or school supplies, or I mean some libraries, no? And another is some infrastructures, no? That is identified like roads, bridges, dam, no? And some livelihood support. And of course, water and sanitation project. This is the one that's being implemented. No? Next, please. And then among the top 5 activities by geographic area, because we are working on, we only have 6 LRPs, but so far the one that we have the village book implemented or completed are the LRP 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we have some area which are non-LRP, but we have projects there also funded, and we have some fellows which we also facilitated some village book planning. So if you notice there are different types of projects identified by the people, no? Then you have the water and sanitation, livelihood, infrastructure, health, and education. No? So in the different LRPs, mostly the water and sanitation and education. In one LRP is more of the livelihood also in RP2. Next, please. Next slide. Okay, this is now the status of the top 5 activities. In terms of education, about around 30% have been finished. However, some projects identified still need not finished, not started yet. Meaning these projects are being sourced. I mean, the projects identified by the villages are sourced for funding. No? And then the green one is still ongoing, meaning it's already funded either by the government, some action aid, or the people themselves, or other donors. So in other words, we still have some, we still are open, so many projects still that needs to be funded, but we are continually helping them source out some funding for these projects. No? Next, please. Then the status of action points by the different locations also. So the top the action points implemented usually around 30%, 40%. So that means, in spite of the work that we have done, there are still many projects, many action points that still need to be addressed by other agencies, by the government. But we really want to help the people to mainstream this to the government development plan, so that this can be addressed by the government themselves. No? Next, please. Okay, and then that study is also part of the graphs. And this one, we contracted a contractor to conduct some emerging impacts of the village books conducted by Rico, Asia, and Marcon Roberts. These are external evaluator. So some of their findings, what are the emerging impacts of the village book, is the awareness of the community issues and needs. No? So people expressed interest and awareness of the community issues, and they strengthen the sense of responsibility toward to the village book process. No? So the people are now they expressed with the village mapping tool. They are very useful because now with the village map they show the whole appearance of their own village. No, of the different landmarks and the different resources that they have. So the first time that they saw the map of their own village. No? Next, please. And then also, since there is a what you call a seasonal calendar in this tool, in one of the village, the community members they created this one, and then they tried to record the different illness of some of their livestock and the treatment they made. So they are recording, of course, some history. No, okay, and then next, please. Then we have a group which have because of the village book, they have more discussions all among the groups, no, in the villages. Next, please. And then there is an increase of confidence of the people when they interact with the government, because they presented the village book to the township level, and if the township will not act on it, they present it to the policymakers. No? Next, please. Okay, so these are some of the photos that we have of the projects that are implemented through village book. Yeah? Next, please. Please just run through to the pictures. Next. No? Next, please. Next, please. Next, this is the dam. No? Next. Next. And next. And next. So we just want to demonstrate what happened now to the action points identified in the book. Now we also share the book in the Google Mapping, the Facebook. We have the village Facebook, and we have the village board, and then we've been continually training the government and continually making some IEC materials. No? Next, please. Next. Okay, this is the Google Map. We put the Facebook. We have the village Facebook where we also uploaded the. No, this is the Google Map. I mean that we uploaded the village book, so they can click on the icon, and anybody, the government or any donors, they can click and see the Google in the Google Map the uploaded village book. No? Next, please. And then this is the village Facebook where the updates now of how the projects are being implemented in the area from each villages. No? Next. This is the example of the village book Facebook. Next, please. And then the village plan board where people can also act on which of their plans or their concerns are not included there in the village plan. No? Next, please. So, however, our challenges for this that some people with little literacy, the book is too complicated to read and access. So, it's better to reduce transparency. The book does not also easily allow to aggregate information, and some capacity of the fellows, the volunteers to facilitate the village book process needs to be enhanced, and then convincing some government on the mainstreaming the village book into the township level planning. Next. I think this is the end of our discussion. Thank you very much from Myanmar.
Thank you so much. This was a very, very interesting presentation. I think I learned a lot from how we can engage and empower village members to actually make their own plans and problem analysis, and ensure, which I think it's even more interesting, ensure that this is elevated to a very at government level, even at national level. And I think the example you gave where we have an Action Aid Myanmar representative in a think tank to actually influence a village planning office at national level, I think that could be something we could touch upon even after this webinar. I think there were some really interesting points, but let me now hand over the floor to Kenya to hear what they have of comments and questions to the presentation. Here you are, Francis. That's over to you.
you.
Francis, please unmute. We have no sound through yet, so if you can just unmute.
Hello there, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Hi team. Yes, in Kenya we have borrowed a lot from the book that has been presented by the team. And in our case we call it community-led participatory change plan, where the staff have been brought together and they were trained on the same for 5 days. And they were supposed to, later on, went to the LRPs, the field where we work, and identified facilitators whom they have trained. We have trained well in 6 LRPs, and we have learned a lot in that particular process. The main process is we have borrowed a lot in terms of the village analysis. We have applied the tools that have been presented, and also the problem analysis. And we've been able to get more information from the community that is really feeding into the plans of that particular village. This is informed by the new arrangement with our governance, where we have the default structures, where the money from the national government is being defaulted to 47 counties. And when it goes to the counties, there is the planning and implementation, where the community should be consulted. But being a new approach, we see the governments at the default unit excluding or intentionally avoiding inviting the community to present, because most of the government officials decided first to take care of their personal interests. With this approach, the community has really identified that as the best approach, and they have come up with the village plans that they have excavated to share with the government leaders. And we are in the process of negotiating with them, and we have seen from the presentation on what we have done with the community, actually being invited in many forums, and one of them being the very strong forum of all the governors of the 47 counties, where they have really ensured that action in Kenya is presented, so that they can share some of the tools and approaches that we have used in coming up with the community-led change plan. Yeah, that is the much we've done. The process is still continuing, and we hope with that good interaction we'll be able to get the best approach in development. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Anything else from Kenya? Kenyatta, Pascaline?
Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you, Myanmar, for a great presentation, and Francis here. Mine is just to, probably from my experience of having been part of this process in some of our LRPs, just to raise some questions that as anyone considering, anyone who is, and we hope that people will be inspired to undertake the process, and especially with the evolution structure that governments are adopting across the world. Some of the critical things that are important to consider is inclusivity. And in our constitution that we passed in 2010, one of the main things that we envisioned was to actually improve and ensure inclusivity. And a critical thing as you undertake this process is to ensure that at the community level, in the villages, that everyone is actually included. How do we ensure that the women are on board? And just looking at one of the slides that Myanmar presented on the village plan board, and seeing the children and them really highlighting that, oh, they actually forgot something that is a priority to us. Ensuring inclusivity will address that issue, ensuring that the people's priorities are actually taken on board. And the other thing that is very important is ensure that whatever issues that community raise are not standalone projects, but they are actually projects that should influence government integrated plans, because that is where resourcing is done. That is where allocation of budgets is done. So once the villages, once the communities have identified their issues, they have identified a plan, and they even have identified how they would want the future to look like, then that should be used to influence the county or the government development plan. And then, of course, ensuring that that is taken to a higher level where communities actually follow us to ensure that not just putting them in the plans, but that they are allocated resources and that they are implemented. And the other thing that I was very, very interesting is the use of ICT by Myanmar. We haven't tried that yet, and I think it's such a great idea of even ensuring that we can track the progress of where the communities are at, where the duty bearers are at in terms of actually implementing plans. I think that is really a great idea. One of the things that we must not forget is that this is a process as opposed to a product. It is a process, an empowering process for the community, a process that should be used by community to influence decision making in terms of budget allocation and in terms of governments really addressing the needs and priorities of the community. Thank you very much.
Hello, team. Just as my colleagues have said, I think this village book is really quite exciting and really reflects what really communities can do in terms of addressing the issues that affect them. But more importantly, when one of the experiences that we just had on the community change plans is that in the development of the community change plans, which is a replica of the village book, is the need to, whenever constituting the teams that are actually identifying the issues and priorities and actions for intervention, they need to really look broadly in terms of the different interests and stakeholders within the communities. For example, there is need at the time when the time of planning to have, for example, people with disability, to have for example, the youth, and there are also different categories of youth, those in school, those out of school, and broadly the various categories of community, so that the community led change plans is actually integrates the interests of the broader section of the community. But more importantly also is to look at some structural issues that may sometimes may not necessarily be very visible at the time of identifying the issues. For example, broader policy issues that maybe or perhaps the communities may not privy to, and therefore there's that need also to, during the capacity building or during building the capacity of the communities, to be able to bring to the attention of the communities in terms of these issues, as much as the communities themselves are leading this process, and by doing that, then rightly, whenever addressing the issues, we're able to address most of the causal factors of the challenges that communities face. So those are just some of my reflections based on what we've been doing here in Kenya, and indeed which is very much related to the village book.
Thank you. I think that's very interesting to hear how this approach has been implemented in another context. I think now we're looking forward to hear from Brazil. What comments and questions did this inspire you to raise, Sergio? Here, over to you.
So, hello everyone. First of all, I'd like to congratulate everyone in Myanmar. This is really a very beautiful experience. And I have taken notes of some questions as the presentation went along, and they came up. Some of them came up as challenges at the end. I would like to ask the team in Myanmar how they're planning on tackling and with the issue of the capacity of the volunteers and the teams and the LRPs. If there is a need of an ongoing support from Action Aid on advising and assistance for the teams, and how they're planning on improving on that in order to have the teams at the community level ready and to provide the support for the community leaders to monitor and follow up with the bearers on the implementation of the plans. And also, I'd like to hear a little bit more on how the village book links to campaigning actions on the implementation of the plans. So, since there is also the challenge to take it to the township level in some cases. This is also an experience we face in Brazil as well. Depending on the government offices in each town or village, they may get really engaged and take it as their own fight in order to implement this. But in other cases, it's really hard to engage in discussions and to implement it. We have here in Brazil, we have very different LRPs. We have 25 LRPs, and some of them are very large and even older than actually Brazil, and others are younger. And also the capacity level of the LRPs is very different. So in some of them, they already have processes of bottom-up and participatory ways of engaging the villages and the neighborhoods and urban settings that uses many of the tools that were shown by the village book methodology, and others they are not that advanced. So we try, since we start working with them, to take this through the PRPs and the baseline processes. So some of the key elements of the methodology is also present, like the context analysis, the prioritization of the issues and problems, the right holders, the dirty barriers, and what changes do you want, and the indicators how to implement them. Right now we are having a very good experience on Safe Cities campaign, which is really broad and taking as specific issues 5 different problems in all the communities, from lightning and education and transportation and the policy and the livelihoods. So in these 5 areas, and with a lot of participation from the women in the communities, they are performing safety audits and their neighborhoods in order to come up with what is they want and demanding government, and changes are happening with this approach. So I'll give back to Orlene and the team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sergio. I think I will also leave the floor to Orlene and Clara and Peter to have a chance to answer some of the questions and maybe conclude on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. I just want to all this put a link between the 2 questions that Karen raised and the one that Sergio also raised. No, first, what we did was that we really tried to have the plans mainstream into the township level, from the village to the township level. So what happened is that we presented this at township level, and then ask them to, to be part of the township development plan. And as what I said, there are challenges like some township are receptive and they have funded some of the activities or projects of the village book. Some township still need to be convinced about the village book. But we went up to the next level. Like we went into the regional level, training the government about village book. So what happened? The government also have their own volunteer to implement village book. This is at the regional or the state level. No? Now we are on the next level, which is influencing the national level. I think that the Department of Rural Development is the agency tasked by Myanmar government to implement the village planning process in all the villages in Myanmar. No, and this will be with the official village plan, and which will be mainstreamed officially to the township and to the regional and even into the national development plan. So this agency, they will get 4 what you call people, like who will be thinking of these tools and the process of having this national level or nationwide village planning process. So we have already 1 staff to sit in that 4 people who will formulate the plan, which is from Action 8. They will have 6 months all this planning process, and then they will be piloting in the villages. No, we have 1 slot already, and hopefully if we can have the other one, so we can have 2 slots to think in the implementation in the national level. So in other words, we are from the bottom, we are working also to the township level, but at the national level also, we are also influencing the government. And I think Clara will discuss more about that question on capacity of the fellows.
Okay, so I think Sergio had a question about the capacities of our volunteers and facilitators. And I think this is a very common issue across all the country programs around the world, about how do we actually build the capacity of our reflection action facilitators. So I think in Myanmar, as I mentioned, we actually recruit the fellows. They're not staff of Action Aid, they're actually volunteers, but we do provide a stipend. It's a fixed fellowship program for 2 to 3 years, and for this program, usually young people who have just completed their university education, they themselves are nominated by their own communities, and therefore they belong to the community, and therefore there's usually more ownership of and also support for the fellows who would be undertaking the and facilitation process. So at the end of the day, I think this relates to Kenyatta's question about the fact that the village books are supposed to be tools and not products. So these village books usually take at least a minimum of 1 year to produce, because it's actually through these ongoing discussion and facilitations, and therefore before they accumulate into a village book. And because it's a long process, we also do encourage the fellows to identify volunteers from the community level. And usually there's about 1 or 2 volunteers every community to also assist the fellow in terms of the facilitation. And we do have a newer program. It's very new at this stage. It's an adolescent training program where we're working with UNICEF. So we're also working, because it's to bridge the gap between the our child sponsorship program and also the fellows who tends to be in their in their early 20s. So we're also training young adolescents to also be actively involved in these village community discussions. But this, of course, is a very new program. But the idea is to get more young people involved in this process. So I think in terms of the village book being a tool and not a product, this is something that we emphasize a lot to our facilitators. and to our LRP staff who will be who are in charge of it. But again, I think one of the biggest challenge that we're faced is now that we're working with the government. The government is now actually training their own volunteers to carry out village book sessions with the communities, and that is the risk that we run, that they become products for the government to say that, oh, we have created 100 village books in this state. And that is a big risk that we run. But again, this is something that we constantly have to deal with, working with other stakeholders to actually raise the awareness that this is actually a process, an educative tool that we're using rather than a final product. Okay.
Peter, something to add?
So since the fellow is like owned by the community, so that this is not our staff. So we have to build up their capacity. Now the fellow capacitated, and then they can manage their own CBO or at the community level. So they can form the CBO themselves, and then they can connect each other village and making a platform, CBO platform at the township level, so that they can present as like a community action plan. They have to they can present their own action plan. So that this is another platform. This is the kind of we call it is the youth platform of our some states and regions.
So the percentage also of fellows who still need capacity enhancement is not really also high, no? So we are 30% of them, but as we have mentioned, the LRP is there to support and mentor them. The partners is also there to support and mentor them, no? And then we have ongoing capacity building also for the fellows. Karen?
Yes, thank you so much. Any other comments from anyone? Otherwise, I think we will just conclude that this has been very, very interesting, and an hour was definitely not enough. So I think we will try to take it up in another discussion on the D groups. But I think we learned a lot. I think all these questions we have is just a sign that there's much more to learn around this. And I think there's a really, really good point that this is not a book or product, this is a tool. It can be implemented in lots of different ways. We hear from Brazil that the capacity in the LRPs varies, and I'm sure this can give us some lessons learned on how this village book can be implemented in many different ways, in many different contexts. Any other comments? Otherwise, I think this is a concluding remark. Okay, thank you to everyone. See you all in the next webinar, which will be in August. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.